In the grand halls of the Viridian Empire, whispers spread like wildfire. Everyone in the court was talking about the human empress Lyria had chosen to marry. It was unheard of. The human's name was Marcus. He was quiet, calm, and unremarkable in appearance. He did not shine like the generals, the ambassadors, or the skilled warriors who filled the palace. Yet Lyria had chosen him, and that choice made the court uneasy. The advisors could not hide their shock. "Your Majesty," one of them said nervously, "surely there is someone better, someone stronger." "This human, he is so ordinary," Lyria smiled softly. Her eyes, bright with intelligence, met the advisor's gaze. "Ordinary?" she repeated. "Perhaps, but strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent, hidden where no one looks." Marcus stood beside her, calm and composed. He spoke very little during the discussions, but when he did, his words carried a weight no one expected. The simplicity of his speech made others underestimate him, and that was exactly what Lyria liked. In him she saw patience, careful observation, and a quiet confidence that could not be taught. The wedding was unlike any in the Empire's long history. Crystals hung from the ceiling, reflecting light and colors no human could name. The air smelled of rare flowers, and the music played by alien instruments hummed through the halls. The crowd watched as the Empress walked gracefully toward Marcus. He in turn walked beside her, his steps measured and steady. There was no flourish, no attempt to impress, yet his presence was commanding. Quietly, without words, he held the attention of everyone. As the ritual began, Marcus never raised his voice. He only followed Lyria's lead, nodded at the right moments, and allowed the ceremony to unfold. Still, every gesture he made seemed deliberate, meaningful. He moved as if he already knew the weight of the Empire on his shoulders, even though no one else could see it. When the final words of the ceremony echoed through the hall, a hush fell. Lyria looked at Marcus, her heart swelling with emotions she had not expected. In him she saw more than a quiet human. She saw a partner, a protector, someone who understood her in ways that no one else did. Beneath his calm exterior there was a strength, a fire hidden from the world but visible to her. Later that evening they walked in the palace gardens. The soft glow of the alien moons illuminated their path. Marcus touched a delicate flower, turning it gently in his hand. "Everything seems fragile," he said quietly. "Even power, even empires." Lyria tilted her head, curious. "You speak as if you have seen it fall." A faint smile touched his lips. "I have seen enough to know when to act, and when to wait. Quiet is often stronger than a roar." Lyria laughed softly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Here was a human who did not boast of his abilities, yet she felt safe with him in a way she had never felt before. His calmness was not weakness, it was a shield, a hidden strength. Yet the court was not convinced. Their murmurs grew into plotting. They could not understand the Empress's choice. They whispered that the human was too simple, too unremarkable to protect her, or to survive in the Empire's dangerous world. But Marcus noticed everything. His calm eyes followed each movement, each whisper, each deceitful glance. Though he spoke little, he observed everything. He was always ready, always patient, always prepared. That night, as Lyria lay awake beside him, she watched his steady breathing. His hand twitched slightly, not in sleep, but as if ready for something unknown. She felt a sense of security unlike any she had known. The human beside her was quiet, yet she sensed that when the moment came, he would act. He would do what was needed in ways no one could imagine, and for the first time she was not afraid of ruling an empire. She was only afraid of losing the human who had captured her heart, and who, she already knew, might one day save the empire with a strength that no one else had seen. The days after the wedding were filled with tension. The palace buzzed with whispers, the corridors echoing with doubt and suspicion. The human Marcus remained quiet, observing everything around him. He spoke only when necessary, but even his silence seemed to unsettle the most confident advisors. Some courtiers began to plot. They whispered that Lyria had been deceived, that Marcus could not protect her or understand the responsibilities of an empire. Yet the more they spoke, the more Marcus listened. He learned their routines, their hidden alliances, and even the secrets they thought were well hidden. His eyes, calm and patient, missed nothing. Lyria noticed the shift in the palace. The warmth she had felt with Marcus remained, but the constant tension in the air made her heart ache. One evening, she approached him in the private garden. The alien moons bathed the paths in silver light, and the fragrant flowers swayed in a gentle breeze. "Marcus," she said softly, "they do not trust you. They think you are weak." He looked at her, his dark eyes steady and unafraid. "Weakness is easy to see," he said quietly. "Strength is often invisible. The loudest ones are not always the strongest." Lyria smiled, her heart lifting slightly. She had married him not for his words or appearance, but for the strength she felt in his presence. And yet even she could not see the full depth of his abilities. She sensed that he carried secrets, skills honed in silence, ready to be revealed when the time came. The first signs came quietly. A minor incident in the armory seemed harmless to everyone else. A group of palace guards had been careless, nearly dropping a ceremonial blade that could have injured one of the courtiers. Everyone panicked, but Marcus moved first. In one swift motion, he caught the blade mid-air. The guards froze. They had expected a scream, a shout, but Marcus's hand simply stopped the fall, steady and precise. No one spoke for a moment. The advisors stared, mouths open, realizing that the human was far from ordinary. Lyria's heart skipped a beat. She knew then that her choice had been right. Marcus's calm was not weakness, it was confidence, experience, and skill disguised as simplicity. Days later, another test came. A group of smugglers had sneaked into the palace disguised as merchants. They carried small weapons hidden beneath their cloaks. Marcus noticed them instantly. While the palace guards debated what to do, he walked among them, silent and deliberate. In a blink, he disarmed the leader, his movement so fast and precise that none of the smugglers had a chance to react. The court was shocked. Their whispers turned into awe and fear. The human they had mocked had shown a strength and skill that no one had expected. Lyria, standing beside him, felt a surge of pride and relief. Her quiet human was more than anyone could imagine. He was capable of protecting her and the Empire in ways no one had thought possible. Yet Marcus remained humble. He never boasted, never sought recognition. He only stood by Lyria's side, silent and patient, his eyes always scanning, always calculating. It was clear that he understood the stakes of their world in a way that went beyond words or titles. That evening, Lyria watched him from their balcony, the stars reflecting in his dark eyes. She knew that the palace would never see him the way she did. Not yet. But she did not fear for the future because she had faith in him. Quiet strength, she whispered to herself, is sometimes the most powerful of all. Marcus turned to her, a faint smile crossing his lips. He did not speak, but she felt the message in the way he held her gaze. He would protect her. He would act when needed, and he would do so with the precision, courage, and quiet brilliance that defined him. In the shadows of the palace, the courtiers continued to plot. But Marcus was ready. Silent, calm, unassuming, he had already begun preparing for the trials to come, and Lyria for the first time felt truly safe. Not because of the army or the advisors, but because of the human she had chosen. Her partner, her protector, and perhaps the strongest soul in the galaxy. The palace was never truly quiet. Even in the deepest hours of the night, whispers moved through the halls like shadows, carrying secrets, lies, and ambitions. Marcus sensed it all. He had learned to read the tension in the air, to notice the subtle movements that indicated danger, and now the danger was closer than anyone realized. It began with small incidents. Messages went missing. Guards reported strange noises in corridors that were supposed to be empty. Supplies were tampered with. Most of the court dismissed these as coincidences or the carelessness of servants. But Marcus saw a pattern. Someone was testing them, probing weaknesses and preparing for a strike. Lyria noticed his concern one morning in the garden. The alien sun had not yet risen, and the dew clung to the flowers like tiny crystals. "You worry too much," she said gently, touching his arm. He shook his head, his dark eyes calm but alert. "I do not worry, Lyria, I observe. And observation tells me that someone wants to harm you, and they are patient." Very patient, her heart tightened. She had chosen him for his quiet strength. And now that strength was showing itself in ways she did not yet fully understand. "What will you do?" she asked softly. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Wait, watch, and when the time comes, act." The warning came sooner than expected. Late that night, alarms echoed through the palace. Lyria awoke to the shouts of guards and the sound of rushing footsteps. Something was wrong. Marcus was already awake, moving with calm precision. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. His voice was low, steady, but there was an authority in it that made the guards hesitate. "Do not engage until I signal. Trust me, The doors to the private chambers burst open and a group of masked attackers stormed in. The palace guards reacted too slowly, surprised by the speed and coordination of the assault. But Marcus moved as if he had been expecting this. In a single motion he drew his blade, a simple-looking weapon but one that gleamed with lethal intent. Time seemed to slow. Marcus moved like a shadow, silent and precise. Every step, every swing of his blade was calculated. He disarmed, incapacitated, and controlled the attackers with a skill that left the court in stunned silence. They had always underestimated the quiet human. Now they understood. Lyria watched in awe as he fought. Her heart raced not with fear but with admiration. This was the man she had chosen, not because he was loud or flashy or boastful, but because he possessed a strength that no one else could see until it was needed. When the last attacker fell, the palace was silent again. Marcus's chest rose and fell evenly. He looked at Lyria, his expression softening. "Are you unharmed?" he asked. "Yes," she breathed, still shaken. "But how did you know?" He gave a small, almost shy smile. "I did not know," I observed. "And I acted. Quiet humans see things others miss." The advisors and guards approached, their faces a mixture of awe, fear, and newfound respect. "Your Majesty." "The human. He saved the palace," one whispered. Lyria's eyes met Marcus's. She did not need words. She knew the truth. In him she had found a protector, a partner, someone whose calm mind and quiet strength could stand against any threat, even those they could not yet imagine. That night, after the palace had returned to silence, Lyria held Marcus's hand. "I never doubted you," she whispered. He shook his head, his dark eyes thoughtful. "You did not need to. But others will doubt. They always do." She pressed her forehead to his, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Let them doubt. I see you. That is enough." Marcus smiled faintly. He did not speak, but the warmth in his eyes spoke volumes. In the quiet of the palace, they both understood the truth. Strength was not always loud. Courage was not always visible. And sometimes the human heart, quiet, patient, unassuming, was the strongest force in the universe. The palace was no longer the same after that night. The guards spoke Marcus's name with respect, but behind their admiration, jealousy began to grow. He had done what none of them could. He had saved the Empress with his bare hands and quiet courage. In the Grand Council chamber, the advisors gathered. Their faces were calm, but their voices carried unease. "The human acts like a warrior," one of them muttered. "But who is to say he will not turn that blade against us?" "He is dangerous," another added softly. "Too skilled. Too silent. We know nothing of his past, only Lyria defended him." "You know enough," she said firmly. "You know that he saved your lives." But even she could feel the growing distance around them. Marcus had become a symbol, to some of hope and protection, to others of fear and pride wounded by a human's quiet power. That evening, Marcus stood on the palace balcony, gazing at the horizon where the twin suns were setting. The golden light bathed his face, but his expression remained unreadable. He could feel the shift, the glances, the half-hidden words, the tension that now surrounded him. Lyria joined him, her gown shimmering softly in the fading light. "They fear you," she said quietly. "Even after all you have done for them." Marcus gave a small, sad smile. "People fear what they don't understand, and I prefer they fear me rather than pity me." She touched his hand gently. "I don't fear you. I trust you." He turned to her, eyes soft. "That is all I need." For a moment, silence wrapped around them in a rare peace, but it did not last. The next morning, word spread that one of the advisors had vanished. His chambers were left in disarray, his personal guard found unconscious. The court immediately looked toward Marcus. He had the skill. He had the motive, they claimed. When the guards entered his quarters, Marcus did not resist. He stood calmly, letting them search. "You will find nothing," he said quietly. "But you will still look." The captain of the guard hesitated. "It is only procedure, human." Marcus nodded once. "Then follow it." Lyria arrived soon after, her voice cutting through the tension. "Enough," she commanded. "You accuse the man who saved this palace? You shame yourselves." The guard stepped back ashamed, but the whispers did not stop. Rumors grew that Marcus was planning something, that he wanted more than love, that he wanted power. The lies spread like poison, and though Lyria fought to defend him, the court's fear only deepened. That night, Marcus found her in the throne room. She was sitting alone, the great hall empty except for the echo of her thoughts. "They are trying to break us," she said softly. "They think you are a threat." "I am," Marcus said simply. "But not to you." She looked up, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Then what will you do?" He stepped closer, kneeling before her. "I will protect you, even from your own people if I must." Her hand trembled as she touched his face. "I do not want you to fight for me, Marcus. I want you to live for me." His eyes softened, and for the first time she saw pain in them, not fear, but sorrow. "Living is harder," he whispered. "But for you I will try." Outside, the night winds howled around the palace walls. Somewhere beyond, unseen eyes watched and waited. The true enemy had not struck yet, and Marcus knew it. The attack before had only been a test. Something darker was coming, and the court's distrust made it worse. As Lyria leaned against his chest, he wrapped his arm around her. "When the next storm comes," he said quietly, "you will not stand alone, not while I still draw breath." And though his words were soft, they carried a weight that made her believe him. In that still moment, she knew the quiet human she loved was no ordinary man. He was a storm waiting to protect her again, no matter the cost. The palace slept uneasily. Though the corridors seemed calm, Marcus could feel the tension in the walls, in the air, in the whispers of the night. This was no ordinary threat. Someone had been watching, waiting, learning the weaknesses of the court. And now the true test had arrived. It began quietly, almost imperceptibly. A shadow slipped along the palace walls, moving with unnatural speed. Guards who had been stationed in the usual posts found nothing, and yet Marcus sensed it, a presence cold and deliberate, weaving toward the inner chambers. He woke Lyria gently. "Stay close," he whispered. His voice carried no fear, only calm authority. "They have come. Now you will see why quiet humans are underestimated." The first signs of attack came as a faint shimmer in the hallway lights. A dozen masked figures appeared, their weapons drawn. The palace alarms rang and guards rushed forward, but they were too slow. Marcus stepped between them and the Empress, his presence alone commanding pause. With a swift motion, he drew his blade. It was simple in design, yet it gleamed like a star in the dim light. The intruders lunged, but Marcus moved like water, flowing, precise, unstoppable. Every strike disarmed, every step predicted the enemy's next move. The palace guards could only watch in awe as he defended Lyria, his blade a blur of controlled power. Lyria felt her heart racing, but it was not fear, it was pride. This quiet human, the one everyone had doubted, was unlike anyone she had ever seen. He was her protector, her partner, her storm in the night. Even as Marcus fought, he never lost awareness of his surroundings. One intruder tried to flank him from behind, but a glance, a shift of weight, and the man was incapacitated before he could strike. The precision, the patience, the deadly calm, it was impossible for the untrained eye to follow. When the last intruder fell, the hall was silent, except for the steady rhythm of Marcus's breathing. Guards rushed forward, offering assistance, but he waved them back. "It is done," he said softly. "No one else is harmed." Lyria stepped closer, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Marcus, you are incredible," she whispered. How can one man be so strong, so perfect in every move?" He sheathed his blade and turned to her, his calm demeanor returning. "I am not perfect," he said quietly. "I am just prepared. Every step I take, every movement I make, I have trained for what I cannot predict. People underestimate quiet humans because they expect us to be careless. They forget that we watch, we learn, and when the moment comes, we act." The palace guards, who had doubted him moments ago, now looked at Marcus with awe. Whispers filled the air, but this time they were not of fear, they were of respect. Even the advisors who had tried to discredit him could not ignore the truth. Marcus was more than a human. He was the embodiment of calm strength, patience, and skill. Lyria held his hand tightly. "I knew you were strong," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I never realized that you could protect everything I care about with such certainty." Marcus looked at her, his expression softening. "I do not do this for praise. I do this for you, for us, for the people who cannot see what is coming." She pressed her forehead to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "You are more than I ever imagined," she whispered. "And you," he said quietly, "are the reason I keep standing, even when the shadows grow long." Outside, the night returned to calm. The intruders were gone, leaving only the echoes of what had happened. The palace was safe for now. But Lyria knew one thing. She had chosen not just a human, but a guardian. A partner who would face every danger, every shadow, every storm, for her and for the Empire. And as they stood together in the quiet aftermath, she realized the truth. Strength was not always loud. Courage was not always visible. And the human she had married was the most formidable force she had ever known. The morning after the attack, the palace was quiet but tense. The corridors were filled with curious eyes and careful whispers. Marcus had proven his strength, but not everyone had forgiven their own fear and doubt. Some courtiers still lingered in suspicion, watching him as if he were a stranger in their home. Lyria walked beside him in the grand hall, her hand lightly brushing his. "They still do not trust you," she said softly. "Even after everything." Marcus gave a faint smile, calm as ever. "Trust is earned, and they will see it in time. Actions speak louder than words." She looked at him with admiration and concern. "I do not want them to come between us. Not now when we are finally together." He nodded. "They cannot. I will not allow it." Despite his words, the tension in the palace was real. A council meeting had been called, and Marcus noticed the subtle shifts in behavior. The narrowed eyes, the whispered suggestions, the veiled accusations. He remained silent, watching and listening, careful not to show anger or impatience. Every word, every motion could be a clue. During the meeting, an advisor spoke up. "Your Majesty, the human has proven his skill, yes. But can we truly rely on him? How well do we know his intentions?" Lyria's gaze swept the room, sharp and unwavering. "I know him," she said firmly. "That is enough. He has saved this palace, and he will protect it again if needed. If you doubt him, perhaps you should examine your own loyalties." The room fell silent. Some looked embarrassed, others furious, but none dared challenge the Empress further. Marcus did not speak. He did not need to. His presence, calm and unwavering, carried the message. Later that day, Marcus walked through the gardens alone, reflecting. He had grown up learning to observe, to wait, and to act when the moment demanded it. But now the stakes were higher. It was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for trust, for loyalty, and for the fragile bonds of an empire. Lyria joined him, sitting quietly beside him on a marble bench. The wind rustled the alien leaves, and the sun cast golden light across the courtyard. "Do you ever feel tired of it?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "Not when it is for you. Not when it is for something worth protecting. Quiet humans are patient. We endure, we wait, and when necessary, we act decisively." She smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I admire you more than words can say. You carry so much, yet you do not let it show. You are my strength as much as I am yours." He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "And you give me reason to keep standing. I do not fight for glory or recognition. I fight because I care, because I must. You have given me purpose beyond myself." For a moment they sat in silence, sharing a rare moment of peace. But both knew it was temporary. The shadows in the palace were still active. Those who had plotted before were now regrouping, watching, waiting for a moment of weakness. And Marcus, ever patient, was ready. That evening, as the twin moons rose, Marcus trained in the private courtyard. His movements were precise, fluid, and deliberate. Each strike, each step, was a reminder of the discipline that had made him capable of defending the Empress and the Empire. He trained not for himself, but for the day when trust and skill would be tested again. Lyria watched from the balcony above, heart swelling with pride. She realized that Marcus's quiet nature, the thing that had made others doubt him, was also the very reason he was so strong. In patience, in silence, he had found power beyond the understanding of the court. When he finally stopped, sweat glistening on his brow, he looked up at her. "I am ready for what comes," he said simply. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "And I will be ready too. With you." As the night settled over the palace, shadows moved in secret, but Marcus was not afraid. He had endured doubt, he had faced attack, and he had proven himself. The final challenge was still ahead. But he knew one truth above all. With patience, skill, and love, even the quietest human could become the strongest force in the galaxy. The palace had never felt so heavy. Every corridor seemed to hold a secret, every shadow a threat. Marcus could feel it in the air, the court's whispers, the jealous glances, the careful movements of those who had once doubted him. But tonight was no longer about whispers or doubt. Tonight was the moment of truth. The attackers came swiftly without warning. Dark figures moved through the halls, their weapons glinting under the moonlight. The palace guards reacted, but they were unprepared for the precision of the strike. Marcus stood beside Lyria, his calm expression unbroken. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Yet there was no fear in his voice, only certainty. The intruders rushed forward. Marcus drew his blade, simple in appearance but deadly in practice. And then the quiet human she had married became something else entirely, a force of nature. He moved with speed and precision no one could match. Each swing of his blade disarmed or incapacitated. Every step predicted the enemy's attack. The palace guards could barely keep up, their mouths open in shock. The intruders were skilled, but Marcus was faster, sharper and calmer than anything they had imagined. Lyria watched, her heart pounding. She had always known he was strong, but this was beyond anything the court could comprehend. He was not just defending the palace, he was defending her. Every hope she had, every dream for their future. One attacker lunged at her directly, a blade aimed for her heart. Marcus reacted before even the man could complete the strike. In one swift motion, he intercepted the blow, spinning the intruder away and sending him crashing to the floor. His movements were so fluid, so precise, it looked effortless. The fight continued, but Marcus never faltered. His eyes scanned, his mind calculated, his body moved as one with his thoughts. Every threat was neutralized before it could harm anyone. The court, watching from the balconies, finally understood the truth. The quiet human they had mocked was no ordinary man. He was extraordinary. When the last intruder fell, the palace was silent once more. Marcus stood tall, blade sheathed, his chest rising and falling evenly. He turned to Lyria, who ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "You saved everything," she whispered, clutching his arm. "You saved us all." He shook his head slightly, calm and humble. "I only did what was necessary. What anyone would do for someone they love." She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "No one else could have done what you did. You are more than anyone imagined. You are more than I ever imagined." Marcus knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "And you," he said softly, "are the reason I fight, the reason I endure, the reason I keep standing. Your trust gives me strength beyond measure." The court, now witnessing the bond between them, understood the depth of his power, not just the strength of his blade, but the quiet, unwavering courage that had always been his. Those who had doubted him now bowed their heads, some in awe, some in shame, but all in recognition of the truth. Lyria pressed her forehead to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "You are my calm, my shield, my storm when it is needed," she whispered. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And you are my reason to keep standing. In silence, in calm, in every moment, I will protect you." Outside, the stars shone over the palace, twin moons casting silver light on the quiet halls. Marcus and Lyria stood together, hand in hand, knowing that no shadow, no whisper, no betrayal could break the bond they shared. That night, the court learned a lesson they would never forget. Strength is not always loud. Courage is not always visible. And sometimes the quietest human, underestimated and dismissed, becomes the most formidable force in the universe. Marcus, the human, had drawn his blade, and in doing so, had revealed not just skill but heart. He was the protector, the partner, the hero, and in his quiet strength the Empire found hope, the Empress found safety, and the galaxy found a force to be reckoned with.